it on? Okay. What's poppin', guys? Today we will react with some imjaystation videos again, guys. Okay? I'm just kidding. I didn't mean to shout you guys, but let's get into it. But before, guys, just gonna say, let's go like and subscribe to this video. Okay, you subscribe. Just gonna wait for you a couple seconds. Are you done? Okay, you're done. Okay.
What's up, my demons? Lately, I've been doing a ton of research about the missing 411. It's by far one of the greatest mysteries of all time, with some of the strangest disappearances. Some of these people disappear forever, never to be seen again, but some of them reappear after days, weeks, or even years after they disappeared. These disappearances are so bizarre, nobody really knows how these people are going missing. Some people blame it on alien abductions. Some people blame it on Bigfoot himself. And other people think it has something to do with the government. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 of the strangest disappearances of the missing 411, and I want to know how you think they've been going missing. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, smash that like button if you guys want to see more of these missing 411 stories. Demon Gang, I'm imjaystation. Let's get it. This story is by far the oldest story. This happened in 1897 to a very young boy. Even though it's so old, way before internet, way before even photography, it has been well documented, even printed inside newspapers. Authorities have made police reports about this. This story went viral back in the day. So this 12-year-old boy was out playing with his bow and arrow. Behind his house, he had this gigantic property in the wilderness. He was playing near this pond, practicing the bow and arrow on fish, but eventually he got bored of playing with the bow and arrow. I guess he couldn't catch any fish, so he decided to go inside of his pond and start building this weird dam type structure. He's building this little structure to guide all of the fish into this one spot so he can use his bow and arrow to catch the fish more easy. So he's down there on his hands and knees putting like big rocks and building this dam type thing, when all of a sudden he looks up and he sees this strange man he's never seen before start approaching him from deep inside of the forest. And the boy later told authorities that this man seemed pretty normal to him. I mean, me personally, I'd be a little bit freaked out if some weird guy approached me inside of the forest, but still, the boy said he was dressed in like a pretty clean looking suit. And anyways, the guy in the suit came up to the little boy and saw him building this dam inside of the pond and said, "Hey kid, what are you doing?" And the kid explained to him he was building a dam to catch fish and shoot it with his bow and arrow. And the man said to him, "Why don't you take a break? That looks like hard work." And since the kid has been pretty much doing this for the last few hours, he said, "You know what? That's a pretty good idea. I'll take a break." So the man said, "Great. And since you're taking a break, why don't you join me with my family and have dinner with us? We have a house that's just down inside of the woods, just over the bend over there. It's not even too far. You can eat dinner with us, you know, relax, and then later you can go back and build your dam." Now, you and me both know how much of a bad idea it is to go off with a random man you've just met inside of the forest to his weird house in the middle of the woods. But for whatever reason, this little boy thought it would be safe enough to go with this man to his house in the woods. So he agreed. He said yes. So the boy starts following the man deeper and deeper into the forest, when all of a sudden they come across this small little cabin in the woods. And the boy has played here many different times. Like I said, this property was right in the middle of his backyard pretty much. And the boy has never before seen any cabins inside of the forest at all. But he didn't really think anything of it, because as he got closer and closer to the cabin, he could see that the cabin was actually lit up and there was people inside of the cabin. He heard laughter and kids playing. He could actually smell the food being cooked inside of the cabin. On top of that, the little boy sees a family friend at the stranger's cabin talking to one of the stranger's family members. So as he walks into the cabin, he waves at the family friend waves at him back, and at this point, the little boy feels like...
What the on the previous video, not video, just dancing waves, but not that wave, so I don't freaking know this kid, so let's just keep watching.
There is nothing at all to be worried about inside of this cabin. Now, the second the little boy enters the cabin, dinner's already being served, and there is tons of food. This stranger invited him to a feast, so the little boy just begins to stuff his face full of food. He eats so much where he starts to get tired, and the little boy accidentally falls asleep and doesn't wake up until the next morning. Immediately, the little boy starts to feel horrible about sleeping over the entire night. He did not mean to whatsoever, and to make it worse, he didn't tell his family at all where he was going. They were probably worried sick about where their little boy has gone. So as he gets up, he could see that the stranger who invited him to the house in the first place is already up and walking around. So he says, "Hey, I'm sorry I slept over last night. I got really tired, but can you walk me back home?" So he says, "Sure, I can walk you back home. That's no problem. And don't worry about sleeping over. But yeah, if you're ready to go, I'll walk you back right now." The stranger began walking the little boy back to the...
Shut up. Okay. I didn't mean it. I don't think I'm sorry. Okay, guys. Okay. What if say that was weird, guys? 3 a.m. guys. Comment down below if you want me to film a 3 a.m. video. Okay. Sorry for the interruption again. Let's play.
River right by his house, and the little boy couldn't help but to think how beautiful the scenery is. The morning sun was just rising over the fields, and he could distinctly remember a beautiful orchard on one side and a cornfield on his other side. But then he started to think to himself, wait a second, I don't even know where I am right now. Is the stranger even walking me to the right direction? Nothing around here looks familiar at all. I mean, surely something so beautiful like an orchard and a cornfield, that's something he would have remembered seeing pretty much in his own backyard. And that's when all of a sudden the stranger stops and just tells the boy, "This is as far as I can take you. In order for you to get back home, you just need to go walk down this trail right here, make a left after the orchard, and you should see the river back to your house." He was pretty confused about why the stranger couldn't just walk him back to the river, but he thanked the stranger for inviting him over for dinner and started walking home. And about 30 seconds after walking away from the stranger, he forgot exactly what the stranger said. So he turned around to ask the stranger when all of a sudden he noticed the beautiful orchard and cornfield were completely gone. Just vanished. They didn't exist. All he saw was thick forest, and the stranger too was completely gone. He started to feel this overwhelming fear run through his body as he looked into the deep, dark forest that now stood there. All of a sudden, he had the gut instinct to just turn around and run as fast as he could back to the river by his house. So he turned and started running, and all of a sudden, as soon as he turned to run, he saw a group...
It's freaking weird. If you heard that sound, that was just my family, okay? Just my family. So let's continue.
People running straight towards him. It was a search party. And one of those people in the search party was the family friend he had just ate dinner with at the stranger's cabin. As soon as they got to him, they just hugged him and said, "Where were you?" And that's when he looked at the family friend and said, "Didn't you tell them where I was? I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night, remember?" That's when the family friend said, "What are you talking about? I was looking for you for the past week. I've been with your family the entire time. We've been searching these woods for the last week straight, and we couldn't find you. Where did you go?" And the little boy was like, "What? I was just in the cabin with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last night. I was with you. I ate dinner with you last ni and this strange family eating dinner just up by the forest over there. I fell asleep there by accident, but I haven't been gone for a week. The boy's family and search party were stunned at what the boy had just said, because ever since the boy was missing, they've been hearing this rhythmic drumming noise coming from the direction where the boy was explaining that this cabin was at. And as soon as the little boy had just been discovered, the drumming noise had just magically stopped. And so the kid is terrified, but there's no answers. Pretty creepy. In 1961, 5-year-old Dennis Martin, his brother, his dad, and his grandpa headed up into the Smoky Mountain to go camping as one of their Father's Day traditions. They were all super excited for this annual tradition of theirs, going camping.
Para sa pamilya ko, I only give the best tasting Crispylicious, Juicylicious, Jollibee Chicken Joy.
Always had the best amazing times ever. They would go fishing, make a fire, roast marshmallows, set up their tent, and always have an amazing night. And that's exactly what happened on this Father's Day. But the next morning on their campsite, Dennis and his brother were playing together when another camper noticed them playing with each other and approached Dennis's father and said, "Hey, I have some kids of my own that are similar age to your kids. Why don't I go get them and they can just play together?" And Dennis's father agreed, so the camper went and got his kids. And soon enough, all the kids were playing hide and seek in the national park. Now, Dennis's father said at all times he had a perfect eye on where exactly his children were while they were playing hide and seek on the forest. But at one point, all the kids were hiding at the exact same time, but not from each other, but from the parents. And eventually, all the parents just had enough and said, "Okay, guys, just show yourself." And all the kids emerged from the forest, except for Dennis. Now, this didn't bother Dennis's father in any way, because he had literally just watched his son go up to this big old tree and hide right behind it. He literally just watched his son do it. His son is only 5 years old, so he was 100% sure his son was right where he saw him go, right behind this big old tree. So after another couple minutes, he says, "Okay, Dennis, come on, come out from the tree now. It's done. There's no more game." And when Dennis didn't come out from behind the tree, he got up and went to the tree and looked behind it, and Dennis wasn't behind the tree. There was nothing. He couldn't see Dennis anywhere. Dennis's father immediately ran deep inside of the forest, screaming his son's name. "Dennis, where are you?" He ran about...
Bro, I just got getting chills, bro.
2 miles up the Appalachian trails, just screaming his son's name, and the rest of the family scattered throughout the forest trying to find Dennis. Everyone saw him hide behind that tree. Everyone. His father himself even said he's seen him go right behind that tree, but nobody could find Dennis. A few hours later, one of the biggest search and rescue teams ever in history was sent out to find Dennis. They had to cover 60 square miles of the Smoky Mountains. Even dogs were used to pick up the scent of Dennis, but nothing was picked up anywhere by any of the dogs. It's like Dennis completely just vanished into thin air. After hours and hours of trying to find Dennis, helicopters turning up with nothing, the search and rescuers eventually went back to Dennis's father and said, "You have to tell us what you saw. You must be forgetting something. If you watched him walk behind the tree and you were looking at him, how is it that he's completely vanished?" But nobody knew. They just didn't know how Dennis went missing. They knew the father didn't do anything. They knew anybody else on the campsite didn't do anything. Everybody was there to see everybody except for Dennis. Now, there was another family camping there on the Smoky Mountain that day, but not in the same location where Dennis went missing. This family was about 2 miles from where the boy went missing. Earlier that day, that family had asked a park trooper where they could go hiking to see bears. This family actually wanted to see a bear. I know, that's freaking crazy. Bears freaking eat people, okay? But this family wanted to see a bear in the natural habitat. So the trooper told them, "Go to this part of the park and you might see a bear. So that's exactly where they went. But while they were there, the family reports hearing what they thought was a little boy screaming, and when they looked over, they could actually see through the forest line what looked like this weird bear man holding something that looked like a little boy over its shoulder and running through the trees. Now, they said it looked like a bear, but this thing was running on 2 legs, and it was fast. Bears are usually on all 4 legs, and they don't normally run at full speeds. But this thing was carrying what they thought was a little boy, and they could actually hear something screaming like a little boy would be screaming. It was weaving in and out of the forest line. And later, when the search and rescue people interviewed everybody at that park that day, the family...
Wait, so you're basically saying that a sneaky bearman with 2 feet just kidnapped a 5-year-old boy, and did Africa see it? They just stare at it or just walk away? The parents, bro, how dumb our parents are. Dennis, and I'm not 100% true. Comment down below if it's true or fake, guys. Yeah, okay. So I'm just gonna say, I don't know, 50-50, so let's go.
Had told them that, but the search and rescue people just shrugged it off, thinking that a bear couldn't sling a boy over its shoulder and run on 2 legs. Nobody put the 2 pieces together, and to this day, Dennis has never been seen again. Now, this last story is one of the strangest stories that I've ever heard in my life, and it involves a family that had 2 different strange occurrences happen that are somewhat connected to each other, and it's up to you guys to decide whether they're connected or not. So on October 1st, this family in 2010 decided to go camping. It was this 3-year-old boy, her older sister, and her mom and dad. They went camping at Mount Shasta, which is a very popular camping site, but it's also a hot spot for missing 411 cases.
Comment down below if you heard that, okay? Okay, back to the video.
But they went camping there all the time. It was totally safe. They've never had a bad experience there. But it was getting kind of late. The sun was almost all the way down when the sister said she literally...
I have a freaking crowbar. I am ready to use it. Okay, that's weird.
She just took her eyes off her little brother. For literally 2 seconds, she looked back and he was completely gone. Vanished. But it was literally so sudden.
So, basically, you're saying that it was a fast kidnapper or something? How? 2 seconds? I think the flashes did that. Oh my god.
She had just looked at her brother just 2 seconds ago, so she went off to look for him on her own. After a few minutes...
Bro, look at this. Wait. Let's continue.
Of looking for him, calling his name, she still couldn't find him, so she went and got her parents, and they started hollering his name too, and nobody could find him. The whole family is freaking out at this point. Their only son is just gone, missing, out of nowhere. They got the authorities involved, and they had a full search of the entire area within an hour. They looked through the woods, every campsite. They even went into people's camping tents to check if the little boy was in there. But 5 hours into the search, they finally found the boy laying in this thick group of bushes. The weirdest thing is, this group of bushes was right off of the main trail of their camping site. They literally checked this place many times. It was impossible to have missed him laying inside of the bushes. They have checked it many times. But if they searched it, they would have found him laying in those bushes. But since they never found him, it means that the boy must have got into those bushes after the search had already started. But even though this was so weird how the son went missing just out of thin air right behind their backs, they were just too excited about having their son back to even think about any of this, about how weird it is that he just vanished like that, how they'd already searched the place where he was found in. They were all just too excited about having their little boy back. They took the little boy to the hospital, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. He didn't hit his head, he had no cuts, he had no bruises, nothing was wrong at all. He was in perfect health, and as traumatic as this experience was, the whole entire family just went back to normal after. About 3 weeks later, that same little boy was being babysat by his grandma, which the little boy called Cappy, and he was just hanging out with his grandma when all of a sudden he said to his grandma, "I don't like the other Cappy." And that was pretty strange for his grandma to hear, because she's the real Cappy. There is no other Cappy. And so the boy explains that when he was camping, he all of a sudden turns and saw Cappy standing there waving at him, saying, "Come over here." And since he loves his grandma so much, he decides to follow her up this hill and into a cave. At this point, the grandma was just shocked.
Why would your grandma Cappy, she's name is would go into a cave? Bro, if I was that little kid, I was just gonna run back and just that. So, okay.
Was thinking, oh my god, someone that looks like me abducted the little boy. She was horrified, and she wanted to hear more of the story that her grandson was about to explain. So once he got inside of this cave with Cappy, he said there was lots of spiders and women's purses just laying around everywhere inside of the cave. So being afraid of spiders, he turned over to look at Cappy, and Cappy was glowing. Just glowing with light, just shining out of her head. And at this point, he realized that that's not Cappy.
Yeah.
That's the other Cappy. And he said that the other Cappy kept asking him questions that he didn't know the answer to. And that made the other Cappy extremely angry. And at this point, she had pushed him out of the cave, and at this point, he had wandered out into the bushes where he was later found by the search and rescue team. Eventually,
I under freaking stand now. So the parents, okay, the freaking search the path bushes many times. So while they're looking for him in the many times in the bushes, the pile of bushes. So her son, whatever, his son, just basically in the cave. So when they're so after that, after checking the pile of bushes many times, and they're just freaking out and just what the frick was that? I don't freaking know what his name is. So he just got kicked out the cave, huh? He just got the other copy angry, so he just pushed him out of the cave, and so basically he just hang out in the bushes. So by the time that the parents got there, he was there, so they was confused. So they were in the cave. So you understand that, okay? That was my story.
The grandma, the real grandma, told the boy's father the same story, and he said, "Whoa, that is so weird. He actually told me that exact same story a couple weeks ago, but I just thought it was nonsense." I guess he just thought it was a random story that a 3-year-old would start to tell. The grandma just thought this was extremely strange. She wondered if there was actually someone that looked like her that would have abducted the little boy. Maybe there's some truth to the story, and all of a sudden, the grandma got this overwhelming need to tell her own story of a weird experience she had at that exact...
Marriage is a thing in this. Wait, what? Yo, that's crazy! Yo, he took
same camping ground years before. Until this point, everybody just kind of thought that the little boy just wandered off into the woods and found himself back 5 hours later. But ever since that little boy's story was told to his dad and his grandma, the grandma thought that maybe her strange experience had something to do with the little boy's disappearance. So a few years back, Cappy and her friend had gone camping at this exact same campground as when the little boy had gone missing in that weird cave. It was her and her girlfriend on that trip. Her girlfriend...
So now I'm the wrong one, guys. So I think 50-50. I said the friggin' story earlier that was 50%. Now this is the 50% half. So basically, I think Cappy in the cave was the real. And bro, I was just confused. That I was just...
Friend had a camping van, and she had set up her own little tent right beside it. Everything was going good on the camping trip. They were having a really good time, but Cappy started seeing these weird red glowing eyes in the forest. So she would take out her flashlight and aim it at the red eyes, but the red eyes would immediately dart away into the forest, and they couldn't make out what was actually making these glowing red eyes.
Now I know what it is. The glowing two eyes. I think that was the other Cappy. So
now she knows that animals' eyes often glow weird colors in the dark, so glowing red eyes didn't really scare her too much. She's camping in the woods after all. There's predators, bears, everything in the woods. It's not really a big deal. They don't normally attack people. But during the night, these glowing red eyes would start appearing on all different sides of their location during that night. Every time they would take out their...
So basically, that is saying that there's many doppelgangers of her. I don't freaking know, but it's just weird.
Flashlight pointed into the woods at the red eyes to see what kind of animal this is, and they could never quite see what animal was making these red eyes. They were both kind of getting nervous about these red eyes, but they decided to just calm down. It was probably just an animal, probably a raccoon, just kind of curious who these people are in the middle of their neighborhood, which is the forest. They were getting pretty freaked out at this point, so they decided to just call it a night and go to sleep. Now, Cappy had her own tent, like I said, and her friend had her own camper. So they went to bed in different locations. But the next morning, Cappy woke up and she noticed she was outside on the ground, in the dirt, face down. And immediately she could feel this pain in her neck. So she reached her hand on her neck and...
Wait, guys. What's up, guys? I'm gonna continue part 2, guys. Peace! Wait. Peace!